Last time, on Asmiliath adventures, our heroes slowly roll up the hill towards Grapevine Manor, the supposed hiding place of late Duke Braun's senile mother. As they arrive, an energetic and enthusiastic young maid comes running down the path, seemingly convinced that our party is a group of soul guiders from the Pruitt Empire. Going along with her mistake, Valorant is introduced to the supposedly famous spiritual healer, Cavander. While keeping up this ruse, the party is informed that Lady Alarice Grator is believed to be possessed by a horrible creature called a pterofox. Learning that this spirit feeds off of people's grief and guilt, our party decides to fulfill a ritual that will place our heroes in Alarice's broken mind. Once inside, the Golden Hearts are met with a disturbing presence of the pterofox, before they are left alone to rescue the old lady from her torment. While healing her mind, our heroes begin to learn about the troubled past of the Grator household, first discovering that Novin that they know was a rather violent child, murdering and skinning a female servant. Next, they witness Duke Braun's father, Aurelius III, on his deathbed, expressing his own guilt to his wife about switching out his true son. Finally, our companions witness the scene where Lady Alarice ties up loose ends, poisoning the tea of Duke Braun's biological mother. Disrupting this final scene, the pterofox finally shows its true form, erupting into a grotesque tower of flesh and bone, shattering this mental realm before lashing out at our heroes. After a valiant battle, silhouetted against the strange void of an old woman's mind, the leeching spirit is finally slayed, it crying out in a final ear-piercing screech before the party is thrust back to reality. It is December 10th. The small garden inside the perfectly still manor is silent. Our heroes, being returned to their bodies, begin to recover their senses, first being met with the familiar sound of the music box they'd come to know. So as you all are slowly coming back into this realm, this plane of existence that you're hopefully rather familiar with at this point, you'd look around very briefly, checking in on your companions after the terrifying display that you just fought through. You would see Thor is kind of sluggishly leaning back and forth from one side to the other. He seems to kind of be groggily returning to his present self, but looking over in the center of all four of you, as snow kind of very gently drifts down from the sky. It's late evening at this point. The mechanical clinking of the music box continues its kind of trudging path as it slides slightly from the loosened grip of Alarice. You see that before, when you'd enter her mind, she was all kind of curled and scrunched into her chair, has now relaxed a bit, her fingers uncurled after years and years of clutching this music box. And as it slides off of her lap, she very slowly kind of lifts her head, peering at all of you, very perplexed, confused, kind of lost, before the small wooden box finally teeters off the edge, kind of clattering into the grass beneath her feet, and the maid that had performed this ritual, who'd seemingly sat there rather patiently throughout all the events that had taken place, lets out just like a simple gasp, just very, I guess, surprised that all of this fangirling and theorizing actually resulted in something.
Decker would go up to Alarice in the chair. So, grandmother, how does it feel to be free?
Kind of lift her eyes to you, kind of look you up and down very briefly. There's no look of familiarity as she just kind of like reaches her hands out towards you and just very, like almost like a curious child, kind of like touches your belt and runs her hand over the hilt of your sword, just feeling objects, anything besides the wooden box for the first time in the gods know how long. But she like finally meets your eyes, you know, her brow kind of furrows a look of confusion.
Braun? Where am I?
I look over my shoulder at her caretaker.
Lendra would kind of just like sat there almost in shock, but like a gleeful shock as she's glancing from Cavander back to Alarice in the center of you all. having informed you guys that years of waiting has kind of gotten to this moment, takes like a single step, kind of pressing against the platinum twine that is still somewhat tense from your unmoving companion Thor, and just calls out to you like, I don't know what she remembers, sir, so just be very careful.
Decker, can you just pass me the box real quick?
Do you mind?
Looks down at the box and looks back up at you like,
No, that's fine.
kind of seeming to very slowly returning to some sort of semblance of normal. But you pass the music box over to Jarek.
Yeah.
You're just examining it, sir?
No, just kind of give a quick look between Decker and Valorant. Any complaints? I just, kind of take care of this.
Well, take care of, you mean destroy?
I'm gonna smash the living shit out of it. Yeah.
You do look back at Alaris. You do understand this box is not natural. It's probably best if we destroy it.
She kind of peers at it, seeming to, like, not recognize it at first, before there's a little bit of, I guess, like a eureka moment, and it comes rushing back at her. She's like,
No, my son. My son made that for me. It's very precious to me.
I can sympathize with that, but a demon has put a curse on it. So, for your own sake, we should probably get rid of it.
Not just your own safety. All those around you could be harmed by it. Including this lovely young woman. You surely wouldn't want to see her hurt, would you?
she kind of glances over at Lendra, again with this look of just absolutely not knowing any of these people, somewhat confusion, and then back at you. You see just the hint of recognition on the old lady's face as she looks you up and down one more time.
You were in my dream.
We saved you.
Saved me.
Perhaps our friend Kavander could more accurately describe it. Kavander?
I'm afraid that you were possessed. We can't say for how long, but today that is ended.
Today being... when?
Do you,
Sort No, I was sort of there again, like kind of looking over to the caretaker, looking for some kind of sign here.
She seems to be on the back foot as much as you guys are. Like, she obviously had wanted this, but didn't really have a plan for once it succeeded.
It is the 10th of January, 3:59.
You see a bit of shock fill her eyes, going slightly wide as she leans back in the kind of rickety chair that she's in.
Surely not. This is... No. It was 3:23.
No. I'm afraid it isn't.
Where is my son?
Your son is dead, man. As is your grandson.
Grandson?
Duke Braun is your son, is he not?
Yes, Duke Braun is my son. He doesn't have a son. I don't have a grandson. Who are you people?
Jarek will set the music box on the ground and walk up to her, kneel down, kind of reach out for her hands. My dear lady, I spent quite a lot of time with your son in his final days. I'm sorry to tell you, he has passed. He did have a child who was also afflicted and has passed. It seems your family has some skeletons that have emerged. And Jarek will cast a minor illusion of Novin's face.
Which version?
Let's go through the most recent time we saw him.
Okay. Are you casting it on your own face or kind of somewhere else?
No, that's horrible. Not that mean.
I'm just
No, just in the air above his hand, kind of like a rotating head.
So she kind of silently takes in what you have to say. It's almost like you can see the eternal struggle written on her face. There's first this, just rejection of anything you have to say, that this is all just some cruel joke or a nightmare, or that this certainly isn't real. And then kind of slow acceptance as some of the things you say start somewhat making sense. And then once you build the illusion of Novin, enough recognizable features from his youth still making up the majority of his face, despite the large eye patch that takes up about a quarter of it, looks between the illusion to you, to the rest of the party, to her surroundings. You see her begin to shake, her hands kind of trembling in your own, as she then looks down at her own body, kind of rotating and taking in the various amount of new wrinkles that she didn't have last time, and just silently kind of quivers in this shell-shocked state, just almost reclusing herself back into the position that she had just come from, seeming to be moderately overwhelmed for the time being.
Looking back at the guys, anything you want to ask? I think we have a potentially limited window.
Lendra would kind of interrupt a little bit. Perhaps letting her rest might be ideal, as she just come back. Kavanda, is this normal? I don't know how used you are to this.
Step with me this way, if you don't mind.
Of course. I did take notes while you were
Just sort of leading her to the side in order to have a private conversation. Miss, there's no real downside, I suppose, to telling you this now. I am not Cavander. None of my party is Cavander. I am Lord Valor Nathelvane, a count from Folk, and we are the Golden Hearts. We've never heard of Cavander before today, and I apologize for the deceit, but under the circumstances, I hope that you will be able to forgive us for the deception.
Give me a persuasion check.
Can I, like, bat my eyes at her and give him an advantage?
No. Nice. She kind of just, like, sits through this explanation, looking just perplexed. And as you finish, she's like, "You must have some strange humor from the Empire. I don't follow this. You did a great job."
It's no humor, man. We honestly abused your trust and used you to gain information for our own ends. And that's his way of apologizing, and mine as well. I'm sorry for what we did, but it was necessary.
Looking
Still
over
is.
at Decker and then looking back at Valorant and kind of doing a few double takes.
But you did the... You saved the Golden Hearts? Who are you?
Well, we have a bard. Would you like to hear it in song?
No!
Look, and Jerk, get up and kind of strut over.
You signed my book!
We can erase it if
You
like.
signed my book!
Jarek, would you please, you can prestidigitate the ink off of the book, could you not?
Yeah, I can probably clean it off for you. I think what you're forgetting to take away from this is you performed the ritual with absolutely no real help from anyone who knew anything about it. So,
Yes,
well done.
the mystical or magical aspect of it, madam, that was all you. We were thrust into another dimension on account of what you did, so whatever you had been studying, bravo. Hats off to you. You're fantastic. Evander would be lucky to meet you.
Perhaps you should write your own book.
I need tea.
I find alcohol works better in these circumstances. Would you like a drink with me?
Persuasion check. Kind of looking at you all again, and then darting a few, like, somewhat bitter glances towards Valorant. She kind of settles back over at Decker and just...
Sure. Your name is Decker, right? Or is that another fake name?
Decker Caspian, I assure you. It's the only one I've ever give.
Kind of looking at Jarek and Valorant one last time, she points over to Alarise, who seems to still be in her budding stage.
Please, don't do anything. I don't even know. Can I trust you not to...
They're mostly harmless, dear. Look at them, really. A boy and a fat man.
We didn't rescue her to harm her.
Precisely.
Just bring her to her room if she is too... yes, Decker, please. Yes, let's leave.
I would go off with her. Look over my shoulder, wave at the boys.
I'm gonna give him a bardic inspiration. Oh shit! I used all of them last combat. Never mind. I'm sorry. I give you a thumbs up and just good luck.
All right, so Jarek and Valorant, you find yourself alone in the courtyard with Thor, who's grumbling about the tingles made him do it or some sort of nonsense, as Alarise is still in her chair.
Valorant, while she's kind of muddled, I could try suggestion on her that could gain us, a few hours of questioning if you need that long, and see if that'll work.
I don't want to send her over the edge. We really did not rescue her to harm her. Let's go on. Let's move forward, but let's tread lightly.
Okay. I'll help however I can then.
So, as you are conversing, and she's still kind of trembling in her one position, she would, lift her head over to you, Valorant, and point a kind of crooked finger down at the discarded music box that Jarek had, and... Sir, may I have it back?
Just...
If I'll do another divine sense, see if I pick up anything from it.
So the kind of vibrating, sporadic energy that you had sensed around it before seems to be gone. It now, as far as you can detect, it seems to be a normal wooden box with the mechanics of a musical instrument on the inside.
Jarek, I suspect that the music box did not come with a demon, but that the Terrafox used it.
Fair enough. Just in case, I'll try and dispel it.
It's a good idea.
And I'll go ahead and cast Dispel Magic on it.
Okay.
Because it never rolls for me.
I guess the feeling of it is when you reach out to try and pry and remove any sort of magical energy from it, you just don't feel anything. It just, like you cast it on a rock, basically.
Okay. Well, just in case. And then Jarek will, pick it up and walk it over.
Kind of
Wind
takes
it
it back in her hand. Yeah, the little gear that twists it has been worn down to almost a nub with the amount of times this woman has idly turned it back into place. And she just kind of slowly runs her frail fingers over, kind of comforting herself with the familiar touch of the metal, and then kind of looks between you two again, and then specifically you, Jarek. How do you know Nelvin? Who are you?
Ooh, well, Lady Alarise, we have spoken with him, a couple of times, and given what we saw in your memories, I'm sure you can imagine why we are not the most friendly with him. his younger tendencies only developed over time, to say the least.
He was getting better. He was such a sweet young man. Talked to him recently. Where is Novan?
It's been a long day. Perhaps that information is better left for another time.
Tell me where my fucking son is.
I would guess he's probably murdering people. Is that what you want to hear? Because that's probably the truth. He's turned worse. He went as bad as it goes. He's entered into contracts with ancient and terrible gods. Now, you are a woman who was brought up in a political atmosphere. I need that Alaris now. Grieve, and I beg you to do so, but right now, your life of training in the court is what is needed to help save this world.
Your words seem to genuinely make her pause, like speaking to some slumbering part of her that hasn't been relied on in quite some time. And you see, instead of her hands kind of fervorously moving over this box, they almost kind of like daintily clutch over one another as if like a proper lady kind of sitting upright, but still kind of hunched over a fair bit. Looking at you for a few long, silent seconds, there's like a distinct shift in her tone as she talks again.
If we are going to be polite, then could you please introduce yourself, sir?
Jarek will draw himself up and kind of smooth over his leathers. My sincerest apologies, madame. I am Jarek Tissel, mayor of the town of Corel. With me, and gesturing to Valoran,
I'm Valoran Athelvane, Count of Capelmont in the Kingdom of Folk.
I am Lady Alaris Gretor. It is a pleasure to meet you both.
we thank you for your hospitality and allowing us into your home. Would you mind if we brought you inside, or do you prefer the evening air?
She kind of cranes her neck up, and you hear this like distinct popping in the back of her neck from not having used that range of motion for so long. This like, and she finally gets to like look up most of the way, and there's just a very surreal, almost frozen moment as like the tiny snowflakes of the night begin to kind of descend on the frail skin of this old lady. Her eyes just kind of filling with the sky for the first time in years. She kind of trails off for a moment, just staring up at the sky.
No, I think I'll stay here for now. Tell me about this thing that my Novan has found.
Ooh, well, it seems Novan has a very strong dedication to revenge, as it seems. We don't know the extent of it, but to say that the fate of all who rest within this kingdom is in jeopardy, is to say the least.
He pledged himself to Tordan, he who is responsible for the Great Entrance centuries ago. He borrowed that power to give himself unnatural abilities and to exact revenge on his half-sibling.
You're telling me that Novin killed Braun?
In essence, yes. He did not directly attack him, but Tordan inflicted a sickness upon him that did claim his life.
What hell have I... What? This can't be real. This is worse than any nightmare I had.
I truly cannot imagine what you have been through, what you are feeling at this time. But now you are awake. For whatever that may be worth. Now you can help us by telling us anything that could even the odds.
Who is trying to stop him? Is it you all?
So far, it is us and the late Duke Braun. We have taken up his quest. His dying wish was to stop what Novin and Tordan are doing.
I will help in any way that I can. If he's truly as gone as you say, then he must be stopped.
One of the problems that we face is that we simply do not know what we don't know. Even coming up with questions to ask is a challenge at this point. We know that Novin was a disturbed child. We know that you swapped him with his half-brother. And we know, as we have explained, what he has gotten up to in league with Tordan. That is all.
As you speak of Novin, she glances down and begins stroking the worn wood of the box, just like almost petting it as if it was a cat in her lap, just using it as like a touchstone to remind herself of everything. As, memories of almost a past life basically are kind of being reignited in her mind, eventually kind of looking back up at you, this shift of almost determination kind of in the back of her gaze.
Novin was a very troubled child. When I found him with the servant girl and the dogs and the squirrels and the cats, and I knew that his soul had already been lost. And when I talked to Aurelis, he knew that for the benefit of the realm, that we couldn't put someone so twisted into any position of power, especially not our people. And then he told me about his mistress and his child. And I was opposed at first, but it did make sense. So I gave up my brawn and took in this other child. Varium was... She was upset. After some time, the Novan that you know, he seemed to get better. Kinda. The fittings of a true Grittor began shining in him. And she wanted to tell the world. She wanted to claim back her own. But it was too late. There's no way the Grittor name would survive such a scandal. So I did what was right. For the people, for the realm, for my husband and my family. And for Braun and Novan. My sons. But Novan found her, with me standing over her, and he fled. And that was the last time I saw him.
That may have left a mark.
It wasn't my intention to disrupt the progress he made.
He seemed to know that the switch had occurred. How could he have discovered this?
As far as I was aware, it was only known to my husband and myself and Varium. After he left, I don't know how he would have discovered it. Not even Braun knew. Even into his adulthood and after his father died. And you said Toradan? It must be someone else. There's no way that... Have you seen him?
Afraid there is little room for doubt. We have seen pieces of Tordan. We have seen some shred of the visions that were forced upon Braun. And Novan names Tordan himself.
Perhaps the twisted powers of that ancient evil showed him this slight, used it, twisted and corrupted him. My Novan wouldn't align himself with something so dark.
Elleries. Lady Elleries. I too have children and can't imagine what you must be going through, but one thing I do know is we have to stop him. can you think of anywhere that he particularly favored? Anywhere that he felt was a safe place or was more of a home in the time you did know him?
He grew up in Kraylin Castle with his brother, and he ran around the courtyard and he played in the gardens, and it's the only place that I would imagine he calls home. He looks over at you, Valorant, and it seems that some of the more like problem-solving aspect of hers return. There's definite like processing going on behind her eyes. You said that he seeks revenge against us, the Grators.
In short, yes.
Kind of glances down at the music box, takes like a few seconds and looks back up at you. Then he would certainly be interested in my existence. Does he know where I am? Has he seen me? Have I seen him?
I suspect the demon that plagued you could very well have been his gift.
Well, if he cursed me, then I imagine he'll be rather upset to learn that his death sentence was not sought out and fulfilled.
You have borne this gift for more than long enough. Why don't we return it to him?
I don't understand.
If you'd allow us to take the music box, it is proof of what we have accomplished today.
Kind of looks down at it. This cauldron, this mixing pot of emotions kind of crossing her face. Kind of lifting it up a bit closer. I think it would serve you better than it serves me now. Kind of hands it over to you.
Send your maid for something that plays a happier, more hopeful tune.
I think there's a lot of things that need my attention. Listening to music seems less productive.
Indeed, what do you think you will do now?
You've told me that my family is in shambles, my son is dead, my other one's a possessed monster trying to destroy the world, and I'm not even in my own home, and my grandson is dead. I imagine something will come to me.
You are the Duchess of Kraylin.
Who rules now that Braun is gone?
We don't know. A plague has overcome the city as it has been quarantined. Another part of Tordan and Novin's design.
And
We are on our way to an audience with the king in Freesight City.
oh, I will apologize. I did not think that you were of such renown. Is young Quintus the king now?
The king is His Majesty Hunfor.
And he is overseeing the treatment of Kraylin?
As well as the recently begun war with Rojmazev.
Fucking scraps. Well, if my home is withering away, then I know where I'm going.
We must depart. We have not exactly informed the king's men that we were making a stop here. But is there any other way that we can help you before we leave?
Where is here?
You are in Grapevine Manor, not far from Kraylin, to the north of the city.
Oh, if he was alive, I would whoop him Grapevine Manor.
Kind of like getting visibly upset at apparently her home at this point. Kind of looking back up at you.
Lord Athelvain of Folk and Mayor Dissel of Corel, I think that I have forgotten my manners in expressing my gratitude in your heroics. Grief is not an excuse for poor manners.
We share in the grief at the loss of your son. He was a close friend.
A worthy leader.
Perhaps when we've dealt with Novin, I will sit down and hear about his life that I missed.
I doubt this will bring any comfort, but I know I would want to at least have it offered. Would you care to see what your grandson looked like?
She kind of looks at you, caught off guard. Thinks for a moment.
Was he like his father?
I don't remember if he was blonde.
He had black curly hair.
Oh God. Jericho just minor illusion, little figurine of Jarrell, looking dapper in his armor and heroic. Not
Kind of
in his.
Takes him in very slowly, kind of speaking as her eyes are still examining the illusion.
How did he perish?
He was kidnapped by Novin. Braun sent us to attempt to recover him, but upon his defeat at the encounter, Novin cursed him.
And it seems that his revenge runs rather deep.
He is driven by a singular evil purpose.
Well, it seems that we all have much to do. The hospitality of my home is welcome to you. I know that you do seek the king, and I would not keep him waiting, but she just kind of trails off.
Excuse us one moment, and Jericho kind of lead Valoran off a few feet. I'm not the biggest fan of this idea, but just kind of looking over at Alarise, do you want to offer her maybe an opportunity on the crown to just relive a nice memory? Because I have a feeling everything that's going to happen to her over the next very short amount of her life is going to be terrible. I feel like that's one kindness we can actually do after, bringing
I
her
agree,
back.
Jared.
Oh.
That is a splendid idea. It's in Thor's possession, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think he'll mind. And,
While Jarrett goes to get that, I'll just approach her again and say, before we say goodbye for now, I wanted to tell you that your caretaker here, you may have seen her just now before she left with Caspian. She's quite loyal. She has been seeking to find a way to help you for a long time, as it seems. And when you can get to Kraylin, Clifford was Braun's steward while he ruled. I'm sure he would quite appreciate to enter your service and to tell you everything that he knew about him.
Clifford the half-elf?
Yes.
This world is so strange. But yes, the nice girl I'll make sure she is treated well. I have much debt in my ledger.
can I
What is-
incite her real quick?
Sure.
Specifically in regards to Clifford.
Okay.
Because I feel like the way she said that, it might be like her ex-lover. And I gotta know.
Kind of like digging deeper into the meaning behind that little spat is much more just this like bewilderment that is who he chose to be his like right-hand man for whatever reason.
Do I just get like a racist vibe, or just like what a random choice kind of vibe?
A bit more personal than just like his race.
Okay, but not his lover. Okay, fair enough. All right.
You were saying, James?
Yeah, no, I guess we'll just leave it at that. I was going to ask, like, what's weird about Clifford, but we've been through enough.
Okay.
No, you know what? I want to know. What makes Clifford such a strange choice?
Well, he was just a mere kitchen servant. When I last saw him, he was a lot of clumsy and full of himself, and just seems like a very improper choice.
Well, he must have demonstrated his worth to the Duke.
And he still lives.
As far as we know, the
Then-
disease that afflicts Kralin is supposedly focused on the human population.
Then I shall judge his worth for myself.
Before we depart your estate here, I know we've already put you through a lot, but I want to offer you an opportunity to perhaps relive some happy memories after having been trapped within such terrible ones for these many years. If you'd like, I can perform a small service to grant you that small escape.
You hand her the crown?
No.
Oh.
I'm asking her this
Oh, okay.
first. Crown is, shall we say, behind Zibak.
Okay. She kind of just like looks over at you curiously. Are you a trained mage?
With all due respect, I believe I have shown abilities to you twice now. But yes, I do have training and the ability to do this for you if you want.
My apologies. The parlor tricks that you showed me did not fill me with confidence.
What Mr. Dissel means is that he was instrumental in putting an end to your possession.
Then you have my gratitude, Mayor Dissel. Your people are very lucky to have a man such as yourself.
We shall see. And then he'll go behind her and kind of like loudly chant some, BS or whatever. And as he's doing that, he'll just kind of place it on the back of her head.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that's gonna, just kind of kick off automatically, or this is gonna be super awkward.
I mean, if you like guided her into like thinking about something, you could more or less lead the horse to water, but you can't just like bop it on her head and have her go lights out.
Yeah, so I'll take a few minutes to kind of go through those self-help phrasing and just, feel yourself drift farther.
Okay.
Think of a happy place. No
Some
place
Jarek
like home.
ASMR.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. But yeah, you could certainly facilitate that. So eventually she would like, I guess, kind of conk out, her body going rather limp as she drifts into the crown of memories. And then I steal all her jewelry.
Oh, that's nicer than what I was thinking, but yeah. Well, while she's out, Valorant, I don't know if you wanted to take a breather, maybe see if Decker wants to grab any snacks for the road.
Another good idea.
So, Decker, in loose terms, what is, I guess the goal with Lendra? Is it just to, like, talk her down or, like, ingratiate the party with her, like, walk her through events, or...
Yeah, basically filling her in on the finer details of what I know about the party, who we
Mhm.
really are,
Mhm.
uh, kind of, broad strokes of what we're doing, and to just get her to relax and to, uh, I really want to play up, how awesome of a person she is to have been um, looking after Alarise for so long and doing what she did. Just, making her feel good about herself.
Give me like a general. I guess yeah, persuasion fits. All right. So as you guys step back into that parlor that you initially been left waiting in, taking this time to have a bit more of a focused conversation with her, asking various questions, filling her in on who everybody is and how the chain of events like panned out on your side of the aisle. Eventually, it only takes maybe like 10 or so minutes to disarm her guard, not in any sort of ill intent, but just returning her back to a more like, all right, this was odd and this is weird, but at least no one is like trying to kill me currently. This seems okay. Um, so yeah, you would just be more or less kind of, I guess, chatting about various things at this point, whether or not the
Yeah. As
dynamic duo come to find you.
No, as soon as we could, shift to the mundane and, ask her about herself, just keep her talking and happy and pleasant. That's kind of what I'm going for.
Okay. So Valor and Jarek, are you returning to the parlor to seek your companion?
I think that I am. Jarek is waiting. I thought was waiting with
Yeah.
Nakarada.
Okay.
I forget how long that takes IRL. So, just kind of chill with her at maximum for an hour. After an hour, I'm popping that off. But
She returns to another terror fox. But yes, Valorant, as you remove yourself from the courtyard and put yourself in the direction of the parlor, you would hear, the light laughter of Lendra and then like the muffled talking of Decker and her kind of going back and forth until you open the door. She's like kind of daintily throwing her hand towards Decker's direction, like, "Oh, I knew that you weren't Cavander, and it all seems so silly now, and I mean, really, it's just I very much enjoy I guess the process of someone's spirit, or the strange sensation, or the mythical energy that's attached to it. It seems interesting."
I imagine that you'll be returning with Alarise to Kraylin as, I'm sure there are many members of that study the arcane there. Have you considered it as a profession?
I was curious about Kraylin. It's our last shipment that comes every week didn't show this week, and I sent a letter to see what was holding them up. Do you have any news of Kraylin?
Yes, there's been some supply issue problems and various other disturbances. You might not see anything from them for a while, but
Well, perhaps when we make it that way, I'll find a better occupation for myself besides withering away with another old lady.
quite. I think you do quite well there. And please look me up anytime that if you gain some faculty for conversing over long distances magically, you can practice with me. It's not too late at night.
Well, Kraylin and Ukin aren't very far, so if you're ever back home, maybe I can visit you, or you could visit me and catch up.
I would be delighted to host you at my manor. And I would... Yeah, go ahead.
I've never had, is it coffee?
Really? You've never had coffee?
I'm much more of a tea person. I drink an unhealthy amount of tea.
I drink a concerning amount of coffee.
Perhaps we can share our tastes.
Mixing them might be for the better.
Well, I look forward to, tasting your brand.
Indeed. Madam?
Caspian.
Been a pleasure. Unfortunately, it appears as if Cavander is here to take me away.
Oh, yes, Cavander.
Well, if Cavander does show up, you'll have an interesting story to tell him.
I imagine that he is held up at the border. I don't think I'd be seeing him anytime soon.
Well, as I was telling the lady, we cannot remain for long, I'm afraid. We have important business to attend to, but it was... Well, we were very glad that we could help and get a chance to speak with her after she had regained herself.
Well, from what Deco was telling me, it seems you all have quite the record of heroics under your belt, and it's, I guess, rather humbling to meet you all.
Not at all. We do what we are able.
Well, for what it's worth, I certainly will spread the word of your good deeds here. It seems that despite the interesting introduction, that everything ended for the better.
I agree wholeheartedly.
But
Do I
you're...
have-
Yeah.
Would there be any coffee in our caravan, or?
I think that's kind of up to you. I imagine the only person who would have it or bring it or secure it would be you. Like if you had like a personal tin that you had or something.
I mean, I don't want to say I have it now just because I want it.
You can leave it up to the dice.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Odds or evens.
Odds.
It seems that you never go on an adventure without your branded brew.
And how accessible would it be? How long would it take for me to go get it?
You would be in the wagon, and then you have to, brew it, I guess. So, I mean, it would be a, 10, 15-minute ordeal at most.
I'm not going to brew it. I'll explain to her how to brew it, but just give it to her as a little parting gift.
Okay. But, yeah, kind of stepping out of the back and forth. Is there any, they would offer any sort of supplies you need, or if you wanted to, spend the night and have this evening. It would only be about 10 or so minutes, Jarek, before she seems to finish with her memory, and you can swipe away the crown. But is there any kind of, tail end things that the party wanted to take care of?
I can't think of anything personally other than we might top up a little bit, but what do you fellas say?
If she's got any, I don't know, a few gold to spare, whatever she can.
So from your exploration of the estate, it seems that this place is almost like a shell. Like the inside is almost completely bare. There's only the, essentials for cooking meals and whatnot. There isn't fine china or anything. So unless you were kind of hinting towards her physical jewelry or possessions, she wouldn't really have a lot of wealth to toss your way.
They don't have 10 gold pieces worth of incense just laying around, do they?
Sadly, no. They're fresh out of that. But if you need crow heads...
If I scoped around with the old detect magic scope, just in case, I I can't trust this place.
Give me an investigation check. You don't find anything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, Jarek's fine.
But I guess the plan is for the party to depart this evening towards Freeside.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think, roughly going off of the distance, it's probably like a 4 or 5 day journey. Maybe like 3, somewhere in that range. Probably get there December 13th, 14th.
January.
What?
January.
January. Sorry, my bad. I think I also got it wrong in the synopsis. I did. It is January. I was a month off. But yes, you'd be arriving there January 13th or 14th. You would be traveling through Ukin, or I guess you could also take the route around Ukin if you so desired. They're both kind of, I guess, the same length. And then basically following the main road there, you have heard rumors, or I guess, asked around to know that Freeside City is more or less the focus of the war that is on currently. There hasn't been any battles or sieges yet, but it's kind of like a stalemate at the border where Roij Mazev has kind of formed up their men within striking distance of the capital, and the king has rallied his troops to the capital in defense, and that's more or less the current situation as far as the war goes, so...
So you're saying we could do like this direction, or we could do that direction, correct?
Yeah, so up in the map where, you kind of dip into Liamis and there's that road heading east, Ukin is right there at the crossroads of those 2 main roads. So you can either kind of go north through Liamis and then east of Freeside City, or you can follow the main road of the river and stay in Giles and end up at Freeside City.
I would advocate for staying in Giles for the time being. Once we're in Liamis, I think we've got things I'd like to do there.
Yeah.
That's all right with you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Easy enough.
Are there any sort of overarching activities going on during the travel? Discussing anything? Preparing anything? Worrying about anything? Recovering from emotional trauma?
I'd probably just really wear thin the joke of calling Valoran Cavander at any given opportunity.
Sounds about right.
Jarek would be practicing that lullaby song from the box, or the nursery rhyme thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Jarek, you would receive repeating messages similar to the last one you had received, with, like, I guess a bit more worry in them. Would you respond to those?
No.
Alrighty.
Unless it has to do with, like, town safety.
Okay. So you're just gonna keep 0 response?
Oh, yeah. No.
Okay.
But, like, if there's pressing matters, like real issues.
Yeah, real issues. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I guess more or less at this point it would just be the mundane routine of traveling. I guess, you would, for the first time in a while, this would be a long length of period that the party is now meeting these new employees and traveling with them for multiple days. Kind of, I guess, learning their quirks or interacting with them a fair bit. But it's rather mundane travel. There is the general, I guess, the hubbub and the rumor mill and the excitement of war on one hand and plague on the other, and all the various political, I guess, connections that might come tumbling from either of those activities. But If there isn't anything you guys want to do along the road, we can kind of pick up as you're arriving in Freesight City.
Rob, did
Yeah.
you say you wanted to do something, Lemus?
No, he's
Yeah.
staying out of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. Because once we get there, I think that there's aside from looking for the missing body part, there's a few other things I'd like to do.
All right. Well, then, if it works for you guys, we might take an early 10-minute break so that we're not arriving at Freesight City and then breaking and then picking up again and then picking us back up when we get there.
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break and then pick up back when we arrive. As the Golden Hearts crest the hill that allows them the sprawling visual of Freesight City. When you had traveled through here last time, it was general mundane day-to-day life. The slow-moving populace and the roadways full of artisans and laborers and townspeople. Now, as you take in the city during this time of war, this kind of frantic preparation for what might come, you see the circle center of the city where the giant palace stands, the elegant towers kind of stretching out before the bay frames behind it. And then you see the more residential, somewhat upper class, distinct separate area kind of sprawling out of that, and then eventually the rural area near the fringes. Outside of the general farmland, and at least a fair distance removed from the city, you see this impressive, vast array of perfectly straight lines of military tents. You see all sorts of colorful banners and flags and emblems representing the various lords and ladies and houses of the great kingdom of Giles, and I guess a rather furious amount of what you assume are the gentlemen that make up the royal army or the feudal army of Giles' kingdom. But they're all more or less off in the distance preparing. You could even hear the distant beating of drums or the sounds of trumpets or horns kind of moving people around or drilling or practicing. But there is most certainly a more tension-filled air, just witnessing this entire populace expecting something drastic to occur at any given moment. But that would be the city that lays out before you as you begin making your way towards its fringes.
Cherk's gonna make sure that crown is put away.
Okay.
Keep that out of sight.
Is it only nobles from Giles, or is anybody from the bordering kingdoms pitching in on this?
It seems that if you take the time to kind of glance over the banners and the sigils and correlate them with what house they are connected to, that right now it is just Giles raised, Giles born families and armies and factions. And does the party have a direction?
We have to head up to the castle, as I recall.
Is that the plan upon arrival?
Don't have any detours other than our shopping.
Okay. So as you begin approaching the denser part of the populace for the city, there is certainly a bit more of, not like military occupation, but just general military presence. There are off-duty soldiers kind of drinking in front of taverns. There are patrols and marches kind of going past you. Eventually, as you reach outside of the rural area and where like shops and larger buildings, temples, and places of worship begin to appear, two distinguishably, that's the word I'm looking for, Royal Army soldiers, both carrying banners and looking very presentable and formal, kind of march up to you. It seems that they'd been, almost picking out strangers at random and questioning them, but I guess they would come to Valorant if you're leading the wagon train, kind of look up at you and, "What's your business here?"
We're the Golden Hearts answering the king's summons.
Kind of looks at the guy beside him. "The Golden Hearts?" Yes. "The Golden Heart. Well, so, welcome. I imagine, yes, the king is probably eagerly awaiting your arrival. Would you like an escort up to the palace?"
Lead the way.
He kind of abruptly turns around, the other guy kind of, I guess, parading on either side of your wagon, almost kind of shifting civilians out of the way for your approach. You start picking up, I guess stragglers might be the right term, of other Royal Army soldiers and captains and guards that are somewhat curious at what this rather unorthodox procession/parade is going through the city. So by the time you've kind of woven through the streets towards the palace, the, again, rather extravagant and well-decorated massive towers of the structure kind of blotting out the sun and jutting into the sky, almost overwhelming the general area as you get towards the gatehouse or the guardhouse and the bridge that crosses over. As you look up at the palace, anybody that's just kind of idly observing, you would spot what looks like a massive bird high in the sky, slowly kind of circling lazily back and forth and back and forth. And you realize the longer that you watch it, it's growing slightly closer and closer, and then close enough that you can actually discern a more definite shape. And you realize instead of a bird, this appears to be a massive griffin. It is this huge white wingspan, this jet brown body, as it's darting in these large, almost sporadic circles, stretching kind of down the coastline and back above the palace. And as you stare closer and it begins circling tighter and tighter near where you are approaching, you realize there's a man on the back of it. He is dressed in this bright, easily spottable golden armor, this black sash kind of whipping in the wind behind him. There's this loud, distinct caw of the griffin that kind of drifts across the water of the bay before you see the pair slowly descend on one of the extruded platforms of one of the towers, landing and then walking inside.
Valorant, we have got to get one of those.
I completely agree.
We all saw it though. What the?
Would we have ever heard of anybody who rode a griffin? Is that just...
So the banner or the sigil or the, I guess, the history of the nobility of Giles' kingdom, the Hunfors, are known not only as, very adept and powerful warriors, but during times of war, or at least during times of strife or struggle, they rely upon well-kept familial secrets, one of those being the communication with rather fantastical creatures, griffins being their, I guess, favored mount or companion. So if you had to hazard a guess, you would assume that the King of Giles has taken it upon himself to secure a more prominent mount.
Well, let's see what he wants.
Yeah.
So the party is led across the bridge, and as you are, I guess, again, still being almost paraded into this palace, you would notice that there are doubled guards on all of the ramparts, I cannot speak today. There is, like, sandbags and defenses kind of placed around the bottom wall of the palace where the moat doesn't quite reach. It's clear that the city has been preparing for any sort of assault, any sort of defense that they have to, I guess, raise up in case of an emergency. It is certainly not focused on its usual kind of fanfare, extravagant show or display of wealth that this palace kind of represents. But as you're brought past the last bastion of defense for this massive structure, you're led into basically what's a self-contained small city. There are all sorts of vendors and artisans and blacksmiths and cobblers, but it is clear that they are all masters of their craft. Their shops are very well kept and elegant. All of their goods are displayed out on these very meticulous displays. The prices are rather high, but it's clear as you're moving through this strange compound-like layout that this palace is designed to function as its own little economy, its own little bubble away from the city of Freesight City. You are eventually led, as you're removed from the wagons and they're stored in the barracks, and that whole separation. You would be led into this almost unimaginable, unbelievable, gigantic ballroom, this great hall. It has 3 layers of these catwalks on either side where various guests or partygoers could look down at this giant, long marble dance floor, very elegant chandeliers hanging multiple hundreds of feet down from this massively arched ceiling. This room is bigger than a dragon, almost as tall as a mountain, you imagine, as you are walking through these very delayed echoes of your footsteps kind of reverberating off the walls and coming back to your ears seconds later. It is something that almost makes you feel small in this giant, vast world, something that you just haven't really experienced anywhere else that you've traveled. But you're led kind of diagonally through the entrance of this room off to a side parlor that you are familiar with this process at this point. You are taken up by a servant, set down with some refreshments and drinks in a still probably overly large and done up surroundings, but a bit more comfortable compared to the great room. But you are left to wait there for some time, as it is told that the king will request you or see you when he is available.
I think Jarek would first admonish Thor for trying to mess with the furniture, and then kind of begin pacing around the room, nervous. They haven't mentioned what he wanted, right?
You asking me or the group?
The group?
Yeah. Okay.
Not that I recall.
I mean, he's a wartime king. He's going to want something of us against something.
Well, I just, there's certain things about Roy Shmazev that I'd care not to go through again.
Happened in Roy Shmazev.
We're working for Braun. Some things happened. Potentially, and he'll kind of gesture around, that could get us requested by the king. So a little bit of espionage. Yeah, Met Valor in there, actually.
Maybe we'll meet a new party member. Perhaps the king will join us. I'm sorry, you'll be outranked, Valorant.
I think I could handle being a part of the king's retinue for a time.
Well, suffice it to say, and I look at Thor, we should be on our best behavior.
Thor's like pushing a stool a couple inches in the wrong direction, kind of looks over and then just gently slides it back into place. So, you guys aren't left for a particularly long period of time. Maybe the span of 5 or 10 minutes go by as you're chatting and taking in the room. There's lots of pretty impressive displays of art, whether they be actual paintings or tapestries or busts that are carved with immaculate detail. Eventually, the door does open, and standing in the frame is a younger man, maybe in his late 20s, early 30s. He stood rather tall, about 6.5 feet. He's dressed in this clean and shiny and polished plate mail armor. He has a prominent black sash across his chest. His rather stubbly beard, but kind of looks you all over and then nods his head. You're the Golden Hearts?
It's clear he's the king, right?
No.
No?
We are.
Kind of nodding over at you. And you are Lord Valoran?
I am.
I expected you to be, more vibrant.
I'm not certain what that means. It's been a long journey.
Well, the king is ready to see you now if you'd like to, follow me.
Of course.
Kind of bow his head, turn around, very dutifully kind of marching across the great room again. You are escorted down the majority of the length before there's another larger room kind of jutting from about 3/4 of the way down. Turning into that room, which basically opens up into the great room, you are met with another long, white marble, tall, arched ceiling throne room. It is rather easy to assume that multiple hundreds of people could occupy this room, listening to this raised stone platform with this pure white throne kind of jutting out at the end. There is a giant circular window kind of placed high in the wall that shows the bay and the ocean kind of stretching out over the horizon. But you see, sat in the throne, kind of almost lazily leaned to one side, still kind of pulling a leather riding glove off of his fingers, dressed in his unique and easily identifiable gold armor with his black sash, his brown hair kind of swept back from either the wind or a quick toss. His beard has grown out a little bit more since, I guess, Valorant last time you'd seen him quite some time ago. He looks maybe a bit tired or potentially grumpy. There is darker black lines under his eyes that show the potential stress that he is under, but he eyes the group of you who are probably still about 120 feet away potentially, and kind of just beckons you with his bare hand as he finishes kind of taking off his glove and flexing his fingers.
Well, once we're as close as I guess they lead us, Trek could make a deep bow, probably overextending himself as nervous as he would be. Just hold that pose.
I would, next to Jarek, I would give the proper courtly bow for the protocol, and then on my way up, I would slap Jarek to come on up.
Valorant also just doing kind of the only what etiquette requires, like not really even making a big show of it. And then says, Your Majesty, we are the Golden Hearts.
Finally finishing his glove and kind of tossing it on one of the armrests of the throne, you see him hold up a singular finger as you introduce yourself before he reaches down beside him and grabs the more prominent, flashy version of the Crown of Memories that you guys had seen him wear before. It standing a bit taller, made of gold instead of silver, those same strange scenes depicted in stained glass. As he slips it over his head, kind of settles it into place, making sure that it is fully on before he looks you all over again and speaks in this rather, I don't know, authoritative voice, as a king might. I know that you are the Golden Hearts. I have requested you here, and I appreciate your somewhat speedy arrival.
We are at your service.
As I hope you might be. I don't want to waste your time, so I'll make this rather quick, and I would appreciate any questions you have being asked during this time instead of a few weeks down the road, but you are rather familiar with the Dark Prince Toradan, this Cretan that has plagued my lands and now taken one of my prominent cities from me. I have been made aware that your adventures have been in pursuit of stopping him, and I want to throw my weight behind your prospects.
Your Majesty is well informed. We are very gratified to hear this.
Well, that is good to hear. I hope that you are not opposed that I am putting together a task force or a group of men that I cannot spare as much as I would like currently due to circumstances, and he kind of gestures through the wall in the general direction of Roy Mazev on the outside of the city, and then almost kind of gets a bitter, venomous look on his face, and then kind of returns back to the scene. But I want to dedicate resources to halting the progress of this problematic person of interest. I hear that he is called the Yellow-Eyed Man, but apparently he is Novin Wiley, some connection of Duke Braun.
At this point, Valorant sort of definitely surprised at what he's hearing, and he says, Yes, Your Majesty, we've encountered him a few times now. Sometimes getting the better of him, other times he of us, but he is a constant threat.
Well, then let me assure you that there will be no more circumstances where he comes out the better.
If Your Majesty declares it, then it must be so.
Well, if I understand the stakes correctly, it is either success or the end of the world, so I would like to assume that what I say is true.
As do we.
What is your current task that you're set upon?
We are seeking pieces of Tordan to attempt to gather them before Novin can collect them and make use of them.
Do you know where these pieces are?
We have clues, Your Majesty.
Jarek would step forth, having a sheaf of papers in his arm, kind of give another bow, and Your Majesty, we do have copies prepared, just in case, if you would like them, or you have someone you want us to give them to.
Kind of looks over at you and gives the party another quick glance and then addresses you directly, Jarek. Sir, I think you are mistaken. I am putting you all in charge of this endeavor. So if you want to start some sort of research center or collection of knowledge, that is all up to you, but you are, as far as I can tell, my best chance at expelling this toxic, venomous ilk from my lands.
Your Majesty.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Lord Valen. Have you reached out to any of the neighboring lands? My kinsfolk in Liamus, perhaps?
Liamus seems to be the last of our allies. I have received messages and notes and warnings that some of the fragile alliances that our late Duke Braun had in place are slipping through my fingers. And
Perhaps I may be of some service then. My father is the Senator of Uken and a rather prominent figure in the hierarchy of Liamus. If you want to send a missive with my full support of your endeavors, perhaps that may help.
I certainly won't turn that offer away. But Liamus seems to be potentially the least of my worries. Lord Valor and I hate to mention that folk isn't exactly responding kindly to my request for aid.
I'm sure that if the importance of the undertaking could only be explained to Her Majesty, that there would be a change of heart.
Well then, who better than Lord Valor and Athelvain of Folk to inform Her Majesty of the current events?
I dare say none.
And I shall leave it up to you to correct that misinformation, sir.
Your Majesty, I hate to be so mundane. However, we find ourselves uniquely charged to deal with this problem on a rather personal level. We find ourselves often in contact with Novin and or his emissaries. And to be very honest with you, we found ourselves quite outmatched on an occasion or two. I would beg physical, more tangible assistance, gold, equipment, whatever you can spare.
I shall allot the... I guess we should come up for a name for your particular order at this point, but find some budget for you and allow you to spend it as you see fit.
Quite generous, Your Grace. Thank you.
I am personally heartened, relieved, encouraged by the wisdom of the Throne of Giles. We will provide results.
That is all I wish. I would rather take this mission on personally, but obviously I have many other duties to take care of, so I have heard and I have witnessed that the Golden Hearts, or this band of fine gentlemen, seem to be somewhat useful in the fight against this unknown darkness. I shall express my gratitude in your recent rescuing of Kraylin.
Though it seems that the ill effects still linger there, you, as far as I've been informed, saved a fair few lives.
More's the pity that we could not save everyone.
When you find yourself in positions of leadership, it is often a balancing act of how many you save now and how many you save later.
Too true.
Might we inquire what your intentions are with your assembled host?
Currently, it is to protect my people and to maintain the attention of my fabulous fast friends over in Roy Mazev.
Your Majesty, in doing your will and enacting what you have pressed upon us, there may be difficulties in acquiring the assistance that we need. Would you be willing to provide a writ of authority for us to help expedite our quest to remove the nuisance?
He kind of looks past you to the knight that had escorted you in. He kind of snaps his fingers a couple times and beckons him closer, and then gestures to him for you. This is my eldest bastard, Sir Kempleton. He will be lingering with you, traveling with you, whatever capacity you see fit. He speaks for me. He will have all of the sigils, letters, paperwork, rings, whatever anyone needs at this point. This is getting rather tiresome. He will be your connection to me, and I connected to you through him.
Thank you so much.
Well, I would love to linger and discuss whatever your plans are, but I have rather pressing matters, so if there's anything rather prominent that I must know, now would be the time or I must move on.
I want to ask him about the Crown of Memories. Do I know we're trying to hide it from him?
That's kind of up to what you guys might have established as a group.
I believe there was a single discussion we had
Was I?
at
Was
some
I?
point.
Yeah.
It is all up to you guys.
It's been a topic of like between session off screen stuff of like what are we gonna do with the crown and when do we want to hand it over and who and all that, and so I don't think that we would have left Caspian out of that, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that being the case, then I wouldn't say anything.
Okay. Any final comments from the group?
Valor says, we're pleased to inform your majesty that the Dowager Duchess Alarice has been restored. I do not know whether your majesty was aware, but she also was suffering from a curse that we know was connected to Novin's deeds.
He kind of lets out this low chuckle, kind of hiding a bit of a smirk before he quickly returns back to a more acceptable presence. Braun certainly had a fair few secrets. I had been told that she had passed.
In a very real sense, one could say that she had. But no longer.
Well, it seems that the gods themselves can't stop the Golden Hearts from rescuing everyone between here and Kraylin.
evil must be opposed wherever it is present.
May I ask what information you gained from her? I know that this Novin Wiley, or the yellow-eyed man as they call him, and Duke Braun were close. I just don't know the particulars.
Only that we took away a token from her residence to prove that his curse upon her had been undone.
Well, hopefully that aids you in the trials to come.
I don't think I have anything else.
Well, Golden Hearts, I again would like to express my gratitude for all that you have done, and I hope that you know the strength, the will, and the ferocity of Giles' kingdom. Stand behind you in your endeavors, and pray for your success.
You as well, Your Majesty.
He'd kind of generally dismiss you, the knight that you've now been introduced to, kind of nodding his head, just, Father, and then proceed to lead you out of the throne room.
And that was Sir
Brandon Campleton. Campleton.
Well, nice to meet you, Sir Campleton.
Yes, you are, Mayor Dissel, correct?
Yes, of Corel.
I will say I have heard somewhat problematic things of your deeds. I hope that they are exaggerated.
I assure you the town is doing very well.
Lord Valorant, it is nice to introduce myself in official capacity.
Sir Brandon, a pleasure.
And then Decker Caspian, is that your name, sir? You are muted, Decker Caspian.
It is.
Well, as it's been stated, at your service, I guess within reason, and I will attempt to pass along my father's voice in any sort of decisions we make down the road.
Absolutely, and so as not to be too presumptuous, how do you prefer to be addressed?
Brandon's fine, as long as we are alone.
Well then, Brandon, it's a pleasure.
Likewise.
So does your father just fly around on griffins every day? That's fantastic. Do you get to fly around on griffins?
You see him get this, like, somewhat, not annoyed, but just this kind of look on his face, and my royal and majestic father enjoys a few... What's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a P.
Privileges?
Thank you. Privileges that I am not allowed due to my station.
Well, monarchies being what they are, one day you'll be flying on a griffin, I presume?
Some rather unfortunate events would have to take place for that to happen, but I shall hold out hope and offer you a ride.
I didn't want to ask, but yes, I wouldn't say no.
Well, I will say that I have been prepared to leave for quite some time. My father's been expecting you for quite some time. I don't quite know where we're heading or what our immediate goal is, but I am willing to listen, to learn, and lend my ear.
Wonderful, truly. What other support do we depart the capital city?
My father enjoys being rather vague. It seems that currently he has just dropped us a bag of money and told us to use it as we see fit. But there is the benefit of having access to connections and knowledge of the palace and its inhabitants, so that might be something that we can leverage if there is something you are attempting to figure out or seek out.
It occurs to me we could probably use like some magic stuff. Like, I don't know if they have like rentable spellcasters or like a scroll or something of like reviving.
Which would be all well and good, but Valorin is quite impressive in combat. He'd be even more impressive in adamantium armor, I believe.
I'll try to play along with this game. You
Brandon,
are free to spend your money however you like.
Yes, if you're going to be with us, you really... We're like this more often than not.
Well, to attempt my hand at it, it would be wonderful if the gold that has been bestowed upon you by my father found its way to equipping his champions.
That's the spirit. You're a champion of his now, too. Feel free to dip in yourself.
I find myself adequately armed, sir.
What is your choice of weapon?
Kind of glances over at you and then smiles a little bit. He's like, I enjoy being rather personal. And then he just raises his gauntlets, and you see that the plate mail gauntlets that he's wearing are engraved with these extremely intricate carvings, kind of swirling around the various contours of the fingers and the palm and the segmented part of the wrist. And as he flexes his fingers, you see this swirling white magic energy coloration kind of traveling through the engravings, and then he sparks a little bit of electricity between his hands and then dispels it.
Alright, so fistfights with you are out of the question.
Well, I can always take them off and make it a bit more fair. Just a suggestion, but do any of you want to know the amount of wealth that we have been budgeted?
Seemed rude to ask. But yes, quite.
I will give you at least this small hint. My father very much enjoys being direct, and so do I, so beating around the bush is rather unnecessary.
Then by all means tell us.
We have 15,000 gold pieces to request armor, weapons, civilians, artisans, employees, guards, soldiers, men, buildings, whatever we, or you, need to see this quest to its completion, though I imagine that
the line of credit we're going to be using will not be welcome outside of Giles.
Well, there was a shop. There were a few items that were a bit out of our budget. We'll probably return there.
Indeed. Well, we have some planning then to undertake, I feel.
Well, if you need a room, there are many in the palace that I could set you up in.
Yes, please.
Shall I retrieve your wagon, people?
That would be very kind, thank you.
Alright. I will put forth again my advice that you can take or leave or twist to your heart's desire. My father does expect somewhat of an organized levy or group against this particular problem. As much as he values the Golden Hearts and your efforts up until this point, he needs a rather wider net across his kingdom, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, the group contains emissaries of 2 other kingdoms besides his. Well, kingdoms being a loose term for representative governances.
I believe we're in total agreement. A task force with a variety of specialties. The task demands nothing less.
Well, if we have that understanding, then I shall find us a room for planning. And he begins leading you guys through the Great Hall. So, settling you all in what appears to be a modest dining room, this lengthy table that probably seats about 30 or 40 people. There are, various amounts of artwork just scattered across every surface of the wall. Again, tapestries and artwork and what look like ancient weaponry or swords or relics just everywhere in this room. But he would eventually set you down at the table. He would have a servant request parchment and ink and paper and a quill and whatever is necessary to figure out the particulars. And then I guess if you guys requested him to go grab your employees and bring them in, he would gather the group and you would all find yourself here.
Wow, how to spend 15,000 gold
You're not gonna spend it all today.
beefing up the caravan.
So I'm understanding the widespread net there. I've got a few people back in Corel. I could try and start using as maybe a information network.
I'm sure the well-traveled roads of Corel will be a great hub of knowledge, Mayor Dissel.
It has more to do with they can travel out of Corel, and I can keep in contact with them. I know what we're looking for. I can describe everything that they need to know.
I'll put forth one question that I'm rather curious about. I know that building up a force to combat the Yellow-Eyed Man and his forces is one of the goals, but what is the current destination for the Golden Hearts? What are we after? What are we seeking? What are we doing to stop him?
believe our next stop was to seek another piece of Tordan in my companion's homeland of Liamus.
Yes, there's a piece of him that's in the swamps, in the swamps of Liamus.
Well, then I guess it is within our luck that Liamus still has its borders open to us, and we can bring in with any sizable force we need. We could rally a small army, we could hire some experts, we could do a whole number of things. I imagine that's our goal.
You know, a few archers would help, you know, in case we need some sort of ambush.
Scouts, so we're not picking our way through the swamp blind. Scouts and guides.
I did mention before that our line of credit's probably only good in Giles, so if we wanted to get local scouts for the swamp, we would have to procure those funds.
I don't think
Somewhere else.
local scouts are going to be a problem.
Well, then that's sorted.
Or
Do
at
we
least
know what piece of Tordan this is? Is that even relevant?
to our knowledge, we don't know what it is, and all we seem to know is that for him to succeed, all of the pieces need to be combined. So if we can at least keep one from him, then that's a victory of sorts.
Then it seems, at least in my mind, the best course of action is securing this piece and then bringing it back here.
If this is indeed the best place to secure it, but that would bring... It would bring war directly here.
War is already here, sir.
No offense, but it's not. Many of the people that we passed today would doubtless be killed. If this is the best place to bring it, by all means, but maybe that should be a focus of our group, is to figure out where the best places to hide these from him for the time being would be.
I'm simply going off the logic that if Giles' kingdom falls in the attempt of keeping this from him, then there isn't a whole lot more to lose at that point.
Not for Giles' kingdom, there's not.
Well, it seems we are rather alone in this endeavor, so...
Alone is such a harsh word. I wouldn't say you're alone, you just haven't found all your companions yet.
Well, I've seemed to find 4 so far, but we'll try to add to that number. So, after preparation off to Liamus, is that the plan?
Yeah. We've got a few places to go, and that was the first stop. So,
Is the piece just resting in the swamp? Is it in a tomb? Is it guarded by...
so on that note, the records are unclear. We're still determining the exact positioning of where it is. Most things point towards a dragon being involved. So, you know, considering your line of credit, as you mentioned earlier, we should probably expect some heavy resistance on that front. will you be venturing forth into the swamps with us?
As you mentioned dragon, he like looks at you and then gains the look of like, ah, yes, I understand you're joking again, this is funny. And then you continue talking and he's like, you're serious about the dragon?
Sir Campbellton, this is no fun jaunt across the lake to fight men. What we seek at this point is to defy a god itself. You're very capable, otherwise you wouldn't hold the position you do, but I hope you are not a fully sane man. Where we go will not make sense or have a reason.
I find that everything can make sense if you put enough effort into straightening it out. The only reason that I had my reservations is no one has seen a dragon in southern Asmiliath in quite some time, so I was simply just a bit caught off guard.
If there's one thing more impressive to ride than a griffin, it's a dragon.
Perhaps I'll wait till it's dead. Then I guess we are off to Liamis to slay a dragon and oppose a god. Does that sound about the right gist of it?
That's the next step.
I was moderately concerned that my father would be sending me off on some simple task. I'm glad that he was correct in assigning me to something prominent.
You will have a tale like none other by the time this is over.
Just try not to die, would you? I don't want your father angry at us.
I don't plan to die, and I imagine my father would not be overly remorseful in my demise.
Sounds like we've got somewhat similar fathers.
Well, perhaps we can bond over our trauma on the road ahead. So we're planning, correct?
Sure. We're talking about the future. That seems like it's planning, right, Valerie?
Quite.
Yes, I was just alluding that talking about our futures like we're on a first date is nice and all, but actually making plans to see the mission through is more the goal.
You're really not my type. Too tall, really.
I'll grow on you.
You're already grown enough. Look how tall you are.
So go ahead.
Well, as of yet, what we know is go to the center of the swamp, find a dragon. We've done what digging we can, but this is a 300-year cycle. Things get lost. 360-year cycle?
360, yeah.
360-year cycle. This is not something that we can just pull up at the nearest library. Without being in Liamis itself, we don't have a lot of source material.
I do think that we could set out with a contingent of soldiers, as we stated before, arrange for some scouts, perhaps some spies even, some skillful individuals who could look for leads on the other pieces as we head for this one. Some scholars would not go amiss.
Just give me a number, a direction, and a desire, and I will see it done. A list might be useful.
Out of character here. Like 3 scouts, a scholar, a spy, 5 soldiers.
I think Valoran might have higher aspirations.
Well, we're out. Gotta feel unprepared here. We're talking
Feel
15,000 gold.
Feel free to either
we might
step out of character or pause it
Yeah.
and do it between sessions, but yeah.
We might need to actually pause and have a discussion.
Yeah, I feel like it would be, and at least for me, undoubtedly, some of it would happen between sessions. 15,000 gold's a lot of gold.
It isn't
you could
physical gold though. I'm hoping that it's coming across correctly. It is you basically can go around to places in Giles that recognize the king and use the money there.
I really just want to talk about all the planning.
Okay, well then I'll end the session here, roughly. I'll have to go back and edit a lot of that out, and we'll just spend the rest of the time, I guess, figuring out logistics.